Don't know about you, but I really struggle with the idea of waiting. In our culture now, we aren't often used to having to wait. If we want some new clothes, we can order them online and we can get next day delivery. If we want to listen to some new music, we can download it straight away. And if we want to watch the next episode in something that we've been watching, often it is online for us to find. And in a way, this is great, isn't it? We have the world at our fingertips, but it has made us incredibly impatient. We're impatient and also really rubbish at waiting and not hurrying into our next task. This has been something that I've been grappling with recently as I've been reading The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, as many others from Broadmead are. When I was thinking about what to bring to you today, something that stayed with me was the idea of winning in the waiting. And a couple of years ago, I read an article in a magazine called Let's Go Surfing, and it was by Danielle Strickland, who's an author and speaker. And it was all about surfing, and it kind of hooked me first of all because of the picture, because there was this really cool picture of this guy riding this cool big wave, and so it got me straight away. And recently I was fortunate enough to go on holiday to Devon for a couple of days, and halfway through the holiday the weather changed and it was cold and windy, but actually it meant it was perfect weather for surfing. So we went to the beach, and it was quite clear to see that the beach had been kind of sectioned off for one area of the sea to be for bodyboarders and one area to be for surfers. And no offence to the bodyboarders, but we did go over to watch the surfers. And if I'm being honest, I have tried surfing once and I really loved it, but I can't say that I was particularly successful. And a lot of surfers, though, on this beach in Devon were really going for it, and some were pretty good and were catching some decent waves. So Danielle Strickland talks in her article about watching these surfers in awe as they ride these waves and having a go at it herself, saying that even giving her absolute best was offering her very little reward. And when she asked the surfer what was the secret to great surfing, he said it's all about working and waiting. It's not all about catching the waves. It's watching the sea, it's practicing the technique, it's swimming against the current, and it's being patient enough to wait for the decent wave. And our lives are full of those massive wave experiences, and we live for them. Achievements, promotions, praying with a friend, and then coming to know Jesus. But you can't get the wave unless we do the time. We need to work for these and not just expect them to happen. When I talk about winning in the waiting, I don't mean coming first, because I'm not competitive, so that doesn't appeal to me at all. But actually, it's about winning and succeeding. It's about not just surviving, but thriving. And thriving in the waiting is so important. In this instant, impatient world that we live in, it is so easy to miss out on what God wants to say to us in the in-between times. If we're constantly looking at what's next, we're missing what's happening then and there. Waiting in surfing isn't easy. You have to constantly paddle to stay afloat. You're fighting against the current and probably drinking a lot of seawater as well. And in life, waiting isn't easy either. It can feel uncomfortable and unnatural and sometimes boring, but once we're open to working in the waiting and learn to love the waiting, we may be surprised at what God may be saying. In Isaiah 30:18 it says, "Yet the Lord longs to be gracious to you. He rises to show you compassion, for the Lord is a God of justice. Blessed are all who wait for him." And in Psalm 27:14 it says, "Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord." Abraham was waiting in life for 25 years for a son. Joseph was in the waiting for dreams for most of his lifetime. And Moses was in the waiting for 40 years before he even began his calling. And David was waiting for years before becoming a king. How can you start to win in the waiting? Instead of quickly jumping onto the next thing or moaning at something taking too long, what is it that God wants to work on in that waiting time? Just to finish, Daniel Strickland said this: God is using every single event and thing in your life and ministry to work his purposes out in your life. He's growing your faith, stretching your perseverance, infusing you with hope, uplifting you with joy. He is training you and using you and surfing with you. It is in these moments where revelation sinks in.